Part 3. Say It Ain't So. This week, we have more police and teachers caught in Lower New England's child sexual exploitation and drug ring, and amateur internet sleuth parents identify 2 new child abuse sub-rings for the Justice Department, just as the feds swoop into Massachusetts to mop up the last busts. Shocking events have forced us to delay our planned format for this, our 3rd episode. We were going to look at area maps of unsolved serial murders of young persons, prostitutes, and drug addicts, as well as peek behind the state of Rhode Island's child record access scandal. Instead, breaking news intervenes. For example, last week, one day after we released Episode 2, federal authorities from Rhode Island arrested Massachusetts border town police sergeant Richard Woodhead for child pornography and date rape drug possession. Connecticut elementary school principal John Bean was charged with manufacturing child pornography, and police failed to note the Sandusky-like apparent family relation to the special needs school IT techie interstate child pornography convict Eric Bean, featured in Episode 2. He got a very light sentence, remember, just like the Tedeschi brothers featured in Episode 1. 2 special ed pedophiles, same last name, 2 different states, and a history of cover-up. Just like the Beans from Connecticut and Rhode Island. And as featured in Episodes 1 and 2, the same Rhode Island police detective known for a pattern of cover-ups arrested Tedeschi and Bean both and missed both family connections when we know he knew more about Tedeschi than he said. There are other common threads in all of this, so we had better take a closer look. In Episode 1, the Rhode Island police detective who protected Tedeschi was also seen to be racketeering with the ex-police owners of the Thomas C. Slater, the state's largest cannabis store, a legally protected monopoly. Episode 1 explains how Detective Major Kevin O'Brien lied to the news media in order to economically benefit the ex-police owners of the Compassion Center. Detective O'Brien also covered up accused special needs pedophile Anthony Tedeschi's 4-decade-long history of clothing altar boys at the local cathedral. And Detective O'Brien totally missed Tedeschi's brother, living in Rhode Island but teaching in Massachusetts due to a covered-up Rhode Island special needs situation kept conveniently confidential. Detective O'Brien was too busy drug racketeering to protect special needs children from predators of whom he was more aware than he admitted. That's a disgusting order of priorities. Remember the sweetheart deal from Episode 2? The Massachusetts Special Needs School's IT guy was busted by Detective Kevin O'Brien and given a slap on the wrist. He really looks related to his nearby namesake, elementary school upskirt porn-making suspect, Principal John Bean. Yet again, Detective Kevin O'Brien made a special needs pedophile bust with a nearby relative with extraordinary access to vulnerable children and missed the connection. Is it because he's too busy fighting drugs? Detective Kevin O'Brien was very busy fighting cannabis at the diocese when he should have been warning parents about a 4-decade history of altar boys being dressed by a suspected special needs child pedophile, as seen in Episode 1. He didn't notice that pedophile's special needs teacher pedophile brother either. There are ugly law enforcement patterns visible throughout. Repeatedly, we see controlled substances used by authorities, trusted educators and police, for power and control over others. As featured in Episode 2, these 3 men are accused of using heroin and cocaine across the border from Connecticut to Massachusetts to sexually enslave young special needs males. And Detective O'Brien, who covered up for the Tedeschis and seems to have missed the Beans in a similar fashion, has his own substance issues as well. the Compassion Center money scandal. Detective Kevin O'Brien caught a pedophile working IT at a Massachusetts special needs school where students are scandalously given electroshock punishment. And he gave him a slap on the wrist, but seems to have missed his pervy relative, just like he did with the Sandusky's, the Tedeschi's. And Sergeant Woodhead. His Facebook friends list includes a special ed teacher from 50 miles away at Bean's school. And in his Facebook friends list can be seen policemen named O'Brien. Uh-oh. Stephen King novels look like Sunday comics compared to the horror of these disgusting acts by teachers and police. As Christians, we must rebuke all sins and love all sinners. And we need to love them into prison and away from our kids immediately. These men were kids once. They were probably drugged and raped by a cop or teacher. Please help us pray for them as we round up the rest of them in the next few weeks. Upcoming in Episode 4, a serious reporting failure pattern in which Rhode Island serial sex assaults occurred after shut up and leave school board handling of prior complaints, and cover-up attempts about state record logins used to target vulnerable children and delete records of abuse.